I went to Koç University, studied computer science, then did some master stuff on product design in Italy, then did another master's in the United States. I've done some entrepreneurial ventures before then too. Like for example, one kind of interesting connection between Bunch and like my previous projects was when I was 12 years old, I built the first online game magazine in Turkey. And then I tried to build like a mobile social network in 2004 on like Nokia devices and like Java and stuff. So I'd been always dabbling in kind of building projects and products. Most important mistake that we did, and I think my former co-founders would agree, is that we started with the technology in search for a problem or a market. And this is a very common mistake that I see in a lot of entrepreneurs. They're really smart engineers and they're really excited about a technology. They're like, okay, let's build this technology and find a customer or a problem or a market that this serves. And that never ever works unless like you get really lucky. So what you really want to do is identify who your customer is, what their problem is, and then build a solution around that. And hopefully that turns into a large market. And even if you basically then know what the problems of those individual verticals are, as a startup, you can't really afford to work on more than one problem and customer. When you basically focus on a customer or a problem, that defines every other decision that you make about assumption that you make about your company and your product. The approach and the solution that we came up with wasn't unique in the global arena. So we were basically building a behavioral personalization system, like kind of tracking your click stream, like the products that you clicked, the things that you bought, and then we give you recommendations based on that. So that was nothing new. For example, there was an e-commerce company in Turkey. That was like a pretty famous one, who shall not be named. We were trying to work with them, and we're like, well, you need to give us your data so we can actually run the recommendation engine. And they were like, well, we don't trust you. We're not going to give you our data. Okay, then it could be a telepathic recommendation engine. And then they actually ended up working with a US company that does the exact same thing, and they gave their data to them because they didn't trust a Turkish company with their data. Like that. Again, I'm just going to anonymously talk about what happened. For example, we were working with a very large company, and then we're like, hey, let's build a music recommendation engine for you guys. And they were like, well, yeah, that would be a great idea. Why don't we do RFP, request for proposal? And we're like, well, who are we going to bring to the RFP? There's no other companies that in Turkey that does what we're doing. And they actually kind of invited like a fake company to the RFP. It was basically probably like somebody that they knew. And then even though we had a working product and they had a Word document, not even a PowerPoint, they gave the deal to them. There was another corporate venture capital firm that was interested, but they basically wanted to, I don't remember the exact terms of the deal, but it was something like, let's give you $100,000 and own half of your company. And I was like, I've lost hope. I can't do anything in Turkey. I'm just going to get on a plane and come to the United States. In retrospect, I'm kind of grateful for those shitty experiences because like I don't think I would have had the resolve to go back to the United States otherwise. Like Square and stuff. And like a funny story is when we first got backed by First Round Capital, me and my CTO Rio and like a few other people, we got an office at the offices of First Round Capital in Soma in San Francisco, and they were renting space. They're giving space to two other startups. One of the startups was Uber. So like Uber, when there were like three people working like next to us. So they ended up being way more successful than us. But again, who would have known, you know? It's kind of these crazy stories that you basically kind of look back. That's a really good question that you raised because that was the reason why I actually stayed in San Francisco. Because the way I first came to San Francisco was like at a business plan competition that Intel ran, where we basically were one of the finalists. And that was my first time in Berkeley and San Francisco. And even in that short time frame, like so much stuff happened in just 2 weeks. I was like, okay, this like the stuff that happened in 2 weeks would happen in the course of 6 months in Turkey. So it was like things move much faster here. Like things like deals get done and people move fast. And I kind of fell in love with that, and I essentially didn't want to go back. And I wanted to kind of pursue the rest of my career in this kind of dynamic environment. I built the company, and then we hired a CEO, and I left the company, and then I started Boostable. And in that time frame, Manifest got acquired. I was trying to build this network effect, but then we didn't end up successfully building that network effect, and then ended up white labeling the software, which I think was a bad decision. The company didn't get as large as I wanted it to be, and then it got acquired by Metro Collective. It was by accident. I started spending more time mentoring at 500 startups. I imagine the entrepreneurs found my advice helpful and they wanted more of my time. And then 500 startups started paying me to advise entrepreneurs. And then they started letting me write checks out of their fund. And I was like, oh, I actually am an investor. I didn't realize that. But build your engineering team in a place where you can scale that engineering team in a way that is much more cost effective, where you can still access like really high quality people. Because like there's really talented people in Turkey and in Canada and in Europe and in Berlin. We don't really need to restrict ourselves to like a tiny ecosystem. But it's good to keep your roots in some place like Silicon Valley or New York, where you can kind of scale and blitz scale the company. One thing that I like to think is that when I did Y Combinator with Boostable, one of the things that Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator, said is like companies don't die because of homicide, like somebody doesn't kill you. You die because of suicide. Essentially, as long as you're really focused on your customers and you don't commit suicide, it's fine. But I think the main difference is like when you look at companies like Peak Games and others, or Graham, they were not building a gaming company for the Turkish market. Even though they were building in Turkey from day one, they were building for a global market because building a product for the global market is just a little bit harder. But then the proceeds, the benefit, the outcome can be so much bigger than being confined to a small market.